Good morning, everyone. Let's start our Sunday Gita class with some prayers first. And as you know, in these prayers, we are thanking God. We are thanking the author who penned it for us, Rishi Vyas. And we are thanking the scripture itself, Bhagavad Gita. Okay? Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasen Grathitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritvarshini Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayane Am Tvamanu Bhagavad Gite Bhavatveshini Namo Astu Te Vyas Vishal Buddhe Full Arvind Ayat Patra Netar Yen Tavya Bharat Tail Purnaha प्रज्वलितो ज्ञान में प्रदीप परपान पारी जाताये तोत्र वेत्र एक पाने ज्ञान मुद्राए कृष्णाए गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोगदा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूर मर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगत गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ चला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्रावती कृपेन वाहने कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सो तीर न खलु पांडवै रन नदी के वर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलम गीता अर्थगंधोटकम नानाख्यान केसरम हरि कथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदय रह पे पिए मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिम यत्कृपातमं वंदे परमानंद माधवम यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्ये स्तवे वेदै सांगपद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ज्ञानवस्थि तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदुसुर असुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. Okay, chapter 18, Moksha Sanyas Yog. And last time we ended the class with verse number 49. We should always remember that the whole discourse started when Arjun was confused at the immensity of his duty. He wanted to run away into the jungle, live in a spirit of what he understood as renunciation. So that's why if you look at the whole thesis of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna keeps telling us, do not run away from life or life's duties. That is not sannyas. That is not renunciation. So in this verse where we ended last time, he defined what the state of actionlessness is. That is called Nashkarmya Siddhi. Siddhi means perfection. This is the state we reach when we do not identify ourselves with this body or the instruments of our perceptions or the instruments of a false interpretation of a truth. We got to regain our life in pure consciousness that it is a supreme state. Because when we forget our spiritual dignity, the misconception of the ego arises. We lose our real personality. We just think that we are just body or the mind or the intellect. This is also called a self-forgetfulness. So he's waking us up with all these discourses. So the ego arises when we are ignorant and forgetful of our real nature. So ego, if somebody wants to define what is ego, it is a wrong identification of ourselves. That's ego. So this is what we learned. But this is all theory, actually. If somebody will say that, hey, this is a theory. But Bhagavad Gita really teaches us how to apply it in our daily life also. So that's why, again, Lord Krishna is telling us how you can attain this siddhi. This Nashkarmiya siddhi, how can you attain it? Because we are here in this beautiful human body to attain this perfection. So let's start. See, most of it you will see it's a repetition because he has already talked about it. But to further emphasize that we do bring this into our life, that's why towards the end of this great scripture, he is reiterating. So verse number 50. Siddhim praptaha yatha brahma tatha apnoti nibodh me samasen ev kante nishtha jnanasya yapara. Siddhim, perfection, praptaha, attained. Yatha means as, Brahma, the eternal. Tatha, also, apnoti, obtains, nibodh, learn, me means from me. Samasen, in brief, like in a summary. Ev means even, Kante, Arjuna. Nishtha, nishtha is like a firmness. Jnanasya, of knowledge. Ya means or, para means highest. See, par and apar, two words. Par is always higher and apar is lower. So how he who has attained perfection reaches Brahma, the eternal. In brief, do learn from me, O Kante, that supreme state of knowledge. So again, it is one matter to read theoretical knowledge, but it is a different matter to realize it practically. And he's urging us, bring it into your life, practice it. When he says that he who has attained perfection, so that means it's doable. Even if one person has attained it, that means we can attain it too. But we have to do what he's telling us to do. He's telling us to get detached from the wrong tendencies in life. As much as we can detach from the false, that much we will attain in this real world, in this perfection, serenity, composure. So that means we have to purify ourselves. When the intellect becomes free from its attachments, mind and body, they will come well under control of that intellect. Only then we are fit to walk on this path. That means a very purified intellect is leading us towards our goal. So the process of accomplishing and fulfilling renunciation from this lower and taking the flight into the higher. He says, I'm going to show you that again, teach you that again. So our attempt now is to reduce our attachment to minimum, so that the film of the ignorance is the thinnest. Because that ignorance is the one which is really veiling the supreme in us. So he says, learn that from me in brief. So in other words, earlier he has talked about it in detail. So now at the end, he's summarizing it for us. What a teacher we have. What a guru we have. So the technique of meditation is being described actually in verse number 51. Buddhya vishuddhya yuktaha dhrityaha atmanam niyamecha शब्द आदीन विषयान त्यक्त्वा राग द्वेषौ व्युदस्य च बुद्धिया, with an intellect, vishuddhya, pure. Actually, shuddh is pure, vishuddh is extremely pure. Yuktaha, endowed with. Dhritya, by firmness. Atmanam, the self. Niyame, controlling. Cha means and. Second line, Shabd Adin, sound and other. Okay. Vishyan, sense objects. See, there are sense objects attached to every sense. So he's mentioning sound and others also. Tyaktva, relinquishing. Rag, deshav, attraction and hatred. Vyudasya, abandoning. Cha means and. So endowed with an extremely pure intellect. Controlling the self by firmness. This self is the lower self. Relinquishing sound and other objects and abandoning attraction and hatred. So Lord Krishna is explaining how by performing our duties in the proper consciousness we can attain perfection. And now he is describing the excellence that is required for the perfection of Brahma realization. So the very first thing he says, Vishuddhya, Buddhya Vishuddhya, pure understanding. An intellect that has grown to remain without vasanas. An intellect that has been purified itself of all its tendencies of joy hunting in this world. That's what he's talking about. Turn that intellect inward. Make it pure. And then control your mind and senses also with fortitude. Sham and Dhamma. We know as an aspirant, we got to tune ourselves properly. And with the Sham and Dhamma, we are tuning ourselves. Otherwise, we just get vulnerable when we live in this world. Our senses are constantly running towards the objects. So with the firmness, we got to control our senses. That is a Dhamma. And then we got to control our mind also with firmness. So controlling the sense organs means any kind of a stimulus, whether it's with the sound or form or touch or taste or smell, do not let it filter into your mind. Always be careful. Is it proper? Is it needed? Because the gateways of the senses are our ears, eyes, skin, tongue, and the nose. We got to have a complete wall of understanding. Wall of understanding we got to build around the mind. We cannot run away from the objects, but we can control what goes inside. Just like in a house, we have the windows and the doors. If there's a storm outside, we cannot control the storm, but we can definitely close the windows and the doors. This is what we need to do. Okay? So these are the instructions he's giving us. So to summarize, number one, he says, intellect purified from all the extroverted desires. Okay. Number two, mind together with the sense organs should be brought under control of that purified intellect. So that purified intellect is higher than the mind. Mind is higher than the senses. So they should be under the supervision of that purified intellect. Sense organs no more contacting the sense objects, at least during meditation. Otherwise, also be vigilant about it. Do I need to look there? Do I need to eat that? Do I need to see that? Have a filter. And number 4, a mind that has given up its ideas of likes and dislikes. Rag and Dvesh. So 4 things he is telling us. Live a life with these 4. So this is the summary he is giving us. So he says that in that state of perfection, we develop a purified intellect that is established in this transcendental knowledge. Mind just moves into the likes and dislikes too easily. So control that mind, Rag as well as Dvesh. And continuation of this verse number 51 is 52. So what do you do when you have done it? Vivikt sevi lagvashi, yat vak kay manasa, dhyan yog paranityam, vairagyam sam upashrita. Vivikt sevi, dwelling in solitude. Lagvashi, eating but little. Yat vak kaya manasa. So vak is the speech. Kaya is the body. Manas is the mind. So speech, body and mind is subdued. So full control over these equipments. Dhyan yoga paraha, engaged in meditation and concentration. Nityam, always. Vairagyam, dispassion. Sam upashrita, taking a refuge in. Dwelling in solitude. Eating but little. Speech, body and mind subdued. Always engaged in meditation and concentration. Taking refuge in dispassion. So these are some more instructions as a meditator is giving it to us. Dwelling in solitude. This does not mean that we should move out of the town to a jungle. This term indicates only a spot wherein there is least disturbance. Every single day, if you have started on this path, have a little corner or little room or some place where you sit like this in meditation, in solitude. If a seeker is sincere, he can discover such moments of complete solitude. So during those moments, you will feel the highest level of peacefulness on your meditation seat. You could be living in a very busy place, but still if you work on it, you will feel that solitude. And wherever you go, you are taking that kind of a mind. Eating but little. And it's not just only about the food we consume from our mouth. We eat through all our senses. Our overindulgence and stuffing ourselves with the food and everything else, that thickens our subtle body also. Subtle body means our man, buddhi, chit, and ahankar. We just keep on fattening it. So we are only worried about a fat body these days. But we are fattening our mind also. We are fattening our intellect also. We have to learn how to purify that too. Temperance is the law for all sadhaks. Then he says, control your speech, body and mind. Yat vak kaya manasa. The mind cannot be subdued unless the body is brought under its command. And body is the one which is constituted of the sense organs of perception and action. Jnana indriya and karma indriya. And the grossest manifestation of the mind is action. And to control action is to discipline the mind. When the mind playing through the body identifies itself with its own projections, the objects, it is called perception. And when it comes in contact with the world of objects, seeking satisfaction and doing something, that is called action. So perceptions and actions both should be in under control. So disciplined actions, that means, do I really need to do that? How much I need to do it? How long? Discipline. Only a well-regulated mind who is under the control of the intellect will guide us that. So discipline your action and regulate your perception. So that's how the egocentric attitude will be reduced in all our perceptions and in all our relationships with the world of objects. That's what he's advising. He's not telling us to run away from our homes. He's telling us to work on it. Whichever field you are working in, whatever your duties are, but make sure you understand who you are, what do you need to do, how to do it. Ever engaged in meditation, that's another thing he says, Dhyan Yog Paranityam. Have to learn how to quieten the mind. It's very necessary. We got to give some time to our mind to contemplate, to reflect. Otherwise, it keeps on engaging in this outer world more and more, constantly. Because mind thinks that it will get happiness in the outer world. We got to sit back, reflect upon it. Learning to divert the mind from the world of sense objects and maintaining it in a steady flow towards contemplation of the Lord. That is the attitude of a sadhaka. That is called meditation. So to be steadily in a state of such and consuming dedication unto the higher ideal is the method he is telling us, because that's how we cool down our lusty senses. Because he says the yogi is deeply contemplative. That's why a yogi prefers solitude. Because the ego and its lust for power and prestige, they have been dissolved. We are not yogis yet, but we are on the path to become that. So this is the homework he's giving it to us. Then another word he uses over here, vairagyam. Got to work on this also. Dispassion. So it's not a mere self-denial of any object of enchantment. It is a state when the mind rebounds upon itself from the objects. Because the mind has understood now that there's no happiness in the objects. So the essence of vairagya, essence of dispassion, is not running away from the objects. Definitely dispassion is necessary. Without dispassion, mind will never grow because growth of the mind depends upon the capacity to outgrow itself from the present state. Because if we keep on doing what we have been doing, we will be what we have been. That is law. So in order to change ourselves, whether to move up or down, there has to be some change. So he is telling us that at any given moment, the mind's growth will happen only when we detach from this lower. So when mind grows, it leaves its old toys. Because it wants to enter into a greater field of nobler gains of life. That's why we need to work on our mind. Practice detachment. So to sum up, a true seeker of the higher life must seek solitude. Maybe initially it will be difficult, but it's necessary. Few moments of solitude every day at least. Subdue your speech, body, mind. Must live in a spirit of dispassion and a true life of aspiration to heave yourself towards the ideal. That's what he's telling us to do. And nothing new over here. He has been telling us all along. But now towards the end, it's just like a final words of advice for us seekers. What else he is telling us in verse number 53? Ahankaram, balam darpam, kamam krodham, parigraham, vimucche nirmamaha shantaha, brahm bhuyaya kalpate. Ahankaram, egoism, balam, strength, darpam, arrogance, kamam, desire, krodham, anger, parigraham, covetousness, vimucche, having abandoned, nirmama, without mindness, shantaha, peaceful, brahm bhuyai, for becoming Brahma, kalpate, is fit. Having abandoned egoism, power, arrogance, desire, anger, covetousness, and freed from the notion of mine, and so peaceful, he is fit to become Brahma. So that means he has the qualifications. He's not Brahma yet. Has not reached there, but is qualified to reach there. So in the previous verse, Lord Krishna indicated the things that are to be acquired and brought about in the relatively outer surface of our personality. Over here in this verse, he is telling us or giving us a list of things which are to be renounced from the inner core of our personality. Inner core. There are enduring values of life a meditator must learn to live. So it's not just a physically sitting down on the meditation seat, but we have to work with our inner mind also. That's why he is enumerating them. So many different items. See, the wrong notion, that I act mentality, ahankar, we got to let that go. When this sense of agency develops, egocentric vanities intensify. What happens? There is a manifestation of the power. I am doing it. I can do it. He says, let that go too. But the power to strive, struggle, sweat, strain. The futile passions and the desires. A meditator lets that go. Only then there will be an Ashkarmya Siddhi, actionlessness. A powerful ego will, with each success in the sensuous world, will gather more and more darpa, the pride, arrogance. He says, let that go too. It's not that don't do anything, do it, but remember who's doing it. In reality, you are not. Only your equipments are. To an individual personality working under the influence of both power and arrogance, lust and anger are natural. And he becomes very restless. Restless why? Because he wants to acquire, possess, hoard the objects of his fancy. And that is the parigraha. So he says, parigraham. So ahankaram, balam, darpam, kamam, krodam, parigraham, all of them. What do we have to do? These 6 items, these are nothing but the manifestation of ahankar. So Lord Krishna is asking us to forsake these and immediately become egoless, nirmam. And if you do that, what will happen? You will become peaceful, shant. See, to me, I think this verse looks like the formula given in a science textbook. Ahankaram, balam, darpam, kamam, krodam, parigraham. So these 6 things, vimuche, abandon those. Nirmama, shantaha, you'll be shant. And then you are fit to become Brahma. I mean, where else are we going to find such a direct message? And immediately shant. This is not a piece of the graveyard. Neither it is a quietness of a desert. This is a peace that arises of the fullness of the wisdom. Because the veil of the ignorance has removed the real wisdom from the real us is shining through. It is our absolute satisfaction which is experienced by the meditator when these 6 things have been removed. All restlessness is caused by the ego and its onward rush towards the finite objects. And when this sense of agency and endless seeking of sense gratification, we learn how to renounce them, we will experience peace within. It's not from somewhere else we get the peace. It resides within us. So this verse does not say that such an individual has reached perfection, but he says he is fit to become perfect. So these are the prerequisites, actually. Say preliminary preparation for the final realization. And what is the next stage of development? I'm sure you would like to know that too, because it sounds so beautiful. Because even when we read this, try to understand it, it really gives us hope also and gives us enthusiasm also. That, hey, from this moment, I want to walk on this path. I don't want to delay it anymore. I've been looking for peace because that's my real nature. But I was looking at the wrong place. Brahmbhutaha prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labte parama. Another profound verse. Brahmbhuta. Brahm becomes Brahma. Brahmbhuta, state of Brahm. Or you can say Brahm realization. Prasanna Atma, serene-minded. That means unaffected by the painful experiences. Prasanna Atma. Na means not, shochati, grieves. Lord Krishna has mentioned this do not grieve word at several places. As a meditator, as a bhagat, grieving is no. Okay? So, na shochate. One does not grieve. Because when do we grieve? When we feel incomplete. So, feeling of incompleteness should not be in us. Na means not kankshati, desires. So, that means does not crave for any material thing to make one's happiness complete. Kankshati, na kankshati. Sama means the same. Sarveshu, all. Bhuteshu, to beings. Mad bhaktim, devotion unto me. Labhte, obtains. Param, supreme. So with this verse, Lord Krishna is concluding his description of the stage of perfection. Becoming Brahma. Serene in the self. He neither grieves nor desires. The same to all beings. He obtains a supreme devotion towards me. So with constant self-effort, relative peace in the mind is to be maintained for longer periods of time. And we got to zealously guard it. Because first, when you start walking on this path, there will be a glimpse of that happiness or the bliss momentarily. But as you do the sadhana, you will see that will be experienced more and more. So when the sense of agency has been renounced, the other aspects of the ego, that I enjoy mentality, will definitely go away too. So if one aspect of the ego I do mentality is conquered, we must equally attend to the destruction of the other aspect of the ego I enjoy mentality. Kartapan and bhogtapan. Or else the surviving part will revive within a very short time. And we will discover, before we know, we have a very fat ego again. Potentially more powerful. Dangerously rising out of the seemingly dead individuality. Because we think that we are the sadhaka. And ego becomes even thicker. So a yogi who has reached to this level will also see all the living beings with equal visions. Realizing the substratum of Brahma in all of them. So in such a state, a yogi is situated on the platform of realized knowledge. It's not a theoretical knowledge anymore. It's not remembered knowledge. It's a realized knowledge. But Lord Krishna is concluding this verse with a twist. He says that such a realized state of knowledge he attains par-bhakti, for God. Par-bhakti, the higher bhakti, the higher love. Because the jnanis are often fond of saying that bhakti is only to be done as an intermediate step toward Brahma realization. They claim that bhakti is for the purpose of purifying the heart. And at the end of the journey, only jnana remains. So they recommend that those who possess a strong intellect can ignore devotion. Some people even have that idea. They say they just cultivate knowledge only. But from this verse, we see Lord Krishna's viewpoint. He states that having attained the highest realization of jnana, one develops parabhakti. Because with the knowledge we know who I am, who God is, automatically there is a higher love for him. There are many examples of renowned jnanis. When they got a glimpse of the form of God, they got drawn towards bhakti. King Janak, Shukdev, 4 sons of Brahma, even Shankaracharya ji. You should look into their lives and see how when they had a glimpse of God, they become bhagat. They became bhagat. So we'll talk a little bit more about this verse next week, because it's a pretty deep verse. And I want you to go through it on your own also and see what kind of a message you get. And we'll start with this verse number 54 next Sunday. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.